Rebecca handed me a positive pregnancy test during sermon prep, 19 days before I'd preached to 50,000 people about family miracles. But I had a vasectomy 8 years ago. I stared at the test, then at the calendar on my wall, then at my sermon notes. The words family miracle suddenly felt like a confession I hadn't made yet. My name is David Michael Hartwell. I'm 52 years old, and I've been the senior pastor at Riverside Community Church in Nashville for 18 years. When I started here, we had 400 members meeting in a converted warehouse. Today we have 8,500 members, a main sanctuary that seats 2,200 people, and 50,000 viewers tune into our live stream every Sunday morning. I built this church on one principle: grace, forgiveness, second chances, third chances, as many as it takes. I've counseled hundreds of couples through infidelity, addiction, bankruptcy, loss. I've sat on that worn tan leather couch in my office and told them all the same thing: mercy is infinite. God's love never runs out. We don't leave people we love. We leave people who don't deserve us. But sitting in my church office that Wednesday morning, holding my wife's positive pregnancy test, I realized I'd been preaching a lie. The test was white plastic, smooth and cold in my hand, clear blue digital. The screen displayed pregnant 6 to 8 weeks in that cheerful blue font they use. It made a hollow sound when I placed it on my desk, next to my burgundy leather sermon journal. That journal, 8 by 10 inches of Italian leather, my initials embossed in gold on the cover, held 18 years of sermons. Every Sunday message I'd ever preached. The leather creaked when I opened it. That sound used to comfort me. Today it sounded like something breaking. I'd been working on my Christmas Eve sermon, the biggest service of the year. Last year we had 2,200 people in the sanctuary and 120,000 watching online. This year, they are projecting even higher numbers. The message was supposed to be about family miracles, how God works through the ordinary to create the extraordinary, how, even in our darkest moments, hope finds a way. I'd written in my journal, family miracles still happen. Now, I was looking at a pregnancy test that shouldn't exist. I pulled up the calendar on my computer. Today was December 5th, 2024. If Rebecca was 6 to 8 weeks pregnant, conception would have been sometime around mid to late October, maybe early November at the latest. I clicked back through my schedule. October 15th through 18th, I was at a medical missions conference in Boston. October 22nd through 24, board retreat in Gatlinburg. November 2nd through 4th, speaking at a church leadership conference in Atlanta. I was gone a lot in October, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was what happened in July of 2016. 8 years ago, Rebecca and I decided we wanted one more child. Tyler was 13, Hannah was 16. We thought it would be nice to have a baby in the house again. Give Tyler and Hannah a little sibling to dote on. I'd had a vasectomy when Tyler was 3. We'd decided 2 kids were enough. But in 2016, we changed our minds. So I went to a urologist, Dr. Marcus Brennan, same practice where I'd had the original procedure, and we discussed a reversal. The consultation was on a Tuesday afternoon. Rebecca came with me. She sat in the chair next to me, holding my hand, as Dr. Brennan explained the procedure, the success rates, the recovery time. Now, I want to be clear about something, Dr. Brennan said. He was in his 60s, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He had been doing this for 30 years. Vasectomy reversals are not guaranteed. The success rate depends on how long ago the original vasectomy was performed. In your case, David, it's been 10 years. That significantly reduces our chances. What are we looking at? I asked. Realistically, maybe a 40% chance of restored fertility. And even then, pregnancy rates hover around 30%. So overall, you're looking at maybe a 12 to 15% chance that this results in a successful pregnancy. Rebecca squeezed my hand tighter. We'll try anyway, she said. Dr. Brennan nodded. I understand, but I need you both to go into this with realistic expectations. This is not a guarantee. This is a permanent. That word, permanent. He performed the reversal in August of 2016. The recovery was 2 weeks of discomfort and 6 months of hope. We tried. Every month, Rebecca would take a test. Every month, negative. By February of 2017, she stopped trying. I'm at peace with it, she told me one night. We were sitting in our living room. The kids were upstairs. She had that look on her face. the one she gets when she's trying to convince herself of something. 2 kids is enough. Tyler and Hannah are great. We don't need more. I nodded. I was relieved, honestly. Relieved that we could stop the monthly disappointment. Relieved that we could move forward. Dr. Brennan had been right. It was permanent. So, when Rebecca handed me a positive pregnancy test in December of 2024, 8 years after a failed reversal, my first thought wasn't joy. It was math. I sat in my office for 20 minutes staring at that test. The morning sun streamed through my window, hitting the stained glass dove window in the sanctuary across the courtyard. 15 feet of pearl white glass surrounded by blue sky panels. When the light hit it right, the whole sanctuary filled with this soft, ethereal glow. You could feel the glass panes vibrate when the choir sang the high notes. Right now, it just looked cold. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Did you see it? God is good." 3 exclamation points. A smiley face. I picked up my sermon journal. The leather felt heavier than usual. I flipped to the Christmas Eve sermon notes. Family miracles still happen. I crossed it out. Sunday morning, December 8th. 3 days after I found the test. I hadn't said anything to Rebecca yet. I told myself I needed time to process, to pray, to figure out how to approach this. But the truth was simpler. I was scared of what I'd find if I asked the question. The sanctuary was full. 2,200 people in the pews, another 53,000 watching online. I could see the viewer count on the monitor behind the soundboard. Margaret Stone, our church secretary, was in her usual spot in the front row. She's 68, been with us for 30 years, knows everything that happens in this building. Next to her sat Pastor Joel Thompson, our executive pastor. He handles the business side, budgets, staffing, facilities. My closest friend here. Hannah was in the second row with the worship team. 24 years old, doing her graduate work at Vanderbilt Divinity School. She's been singing with our team since she was 16. She wore the white gold cross necklace Rebecca gave her at her baptism in 2006, 18 karat, with a tiny diamond at the center. The engraving on the back said, "To Hannah, love Mom and Dad." It caught the sanctuary lights when she moved, throwing tiny rainbows on the wall. Tyler was home from college for the weekend, 21, pre-law at Vanderbilt. He sat with some friends from his high school youth group days. And up on the stage, leading worship, was Rebecca, 49 years old, minister of music and arts. She'd built our worship program from 12 volunteers to a 12-person paid team with a $400,000 budget. She wore her signature rose gold jewelry, watch, bracelets, rings, designer clothes, Botox appointments every 3 months. She liked to say she was aging gracefully, but the truth was, she worked very hard not to age at all. Next to her, playing lead guitar, was Caleb James Morrison, 28 years old, associate worship pastor. I'd hired him 14 months ago, right after Hannah got engaged to him. He'd seemed perfect, talented musician, wrote contemporary worship songs, good theology, kind to the staff. Everyone loved him. Rebecca and Caleb were singing a duet, something about creating beautiful things together. The lyrics talked about collaboration, about making something greater than the sum of its parts. Hannah smiled in the front row, swaying to the music. She had no idea what they'd already created. I watched Rebecca's hand brush against Caleb's arm as they sang. Just a brief touch, perfectly innocent to anyone watching, but I saw it. And something in my stomach turned. Rebecca's rose gold iPhone sat on the pulpit stand next to my Bible. She'd left it there before the service started. The screen lit up with a text notification. The preview showed, "Can't wait to see you tonight." The sender, Caleb. The phone buzzed, wind chimes, her notification sound, gentle, pretty, innocent. I looked up at the congregation, 2,200 faces looking at me, waiting for me to preach about God's faithfulness. I opened my Bible and began. If you've ever had to smile while your world falls apart, had to keep performing while you're dying inside, just type mask in the comments. You're not alone. I see you. Monday afternoon, Margaret found Rebecca's phone. It was sitting in the church office. Rebecca had left it there after a staff meeting. Margaret was locking up, using the heavy brass keyring with 14 labeled keys. Sanctuary, offices, storage, music room. The keys jingled as she walked. The wooden cross keychain was worn smooth from decades of nervous thumb rubbing. She called me at home. "Pastor David," she said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear something underneath it. Tension, worry. "Rebecca left her phone here. It's been buzzing constantly. I saw some of the messages." "What messages?" A long pause. "I think you should come to the church." When I arrived, Margaret was sitting in her office. Rebecca's phone was on the desk between us. Rose gold, iPhone 14 Pro, spiderweb crack in the upper right corner. She'd dropped it 3 months ago, never got it fixed. Said she liked the imperfection. Glittery pink case with Mrs. H in cursive. The screen was lit up. Message notifications filled the lock screen. "I didn't unlock it," Margaret said quietly. "I didn't need to. The previews..." I picked up the phone. It buzzed in my hand. That aggressive vibration pattern Rebecca always used. The screen brightness was turned all the way up. It hurt my eyes. "Caleb, last night was perfect. I love you." "Caleb, when can we tell everyone?" "Caleb, I know it's complicated, but we can't hide forever." "Caleb, can't wait to see you tonight." I scrolled down, more messages, dozens of them, all from Caleb. "Pastor," Margaret said. Her voice was thick. She'd been crying. "There are over 200 messages. You need to sit down." I sat down. I knew Rebecca's passcode, our anniversary, 0915. I unlocked the phone. The messages went back 8 months, March 2024. Right after we'd hired Caleb, right after Hannah and Caleb got engaged. I scrolled through them. My stomach dropped with each one. March 18th. I can't stop thinking about last night. April 2. You make me feel young again. April 30. Tell David you're working late. I've got the music room reserved. May 15th. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. June, July, August, September, October, November, 8 months of an affair, 8 months of lies. And somewhere in October, according to that pregnancy test, they'd created something permanent. Margaret wasn't looking at me. She was staring at her desk, at the family photo she kept there. Her husband of 46 years. Their 3 grown children, 8 grandkids. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I put the phone down. The glittery pink case caught the fluorescent light. "Don't apologize," I said. My voice sounded distant, clinical, like I was counseling someone else. "You did the right thing. What are you going to do?" I looked at the phone, then at Margaret, then at the bulletin board on her wall, covered with church event flyers. Christmas Eve service, Hannah's engagement party, December 16th, 250 guests. A photo of our staff retreat from last summer. Rebecca and Caleb standing next to each other, laughing at something. "I don't know yet," I said. But I did know. I'd known since Sunday when I saw that text preview on the pulpit. I'd known since I did the math on the pregnancy timeline. I'd known since I remembered Dr. Brennan's voice saying, permanent. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. Tyler came home that night for dinner, Wednesday, December 11th, 10 days after I'd found the test, 4 days after Margaret showed me the phone. Rebecca made lasagna, her specialty. The dining room smelled like garlic and oregano. Everything looked normal, perfect, like a scene from a pastoral family's Instagram post. Hannah couldn't make it. She had evening classes at Vanderbilt, just the 4 of us. Rebecca, me, Tyler, and the silence. Tyler was talking about finals week, some paper he had to write for constitutional law. Rebecca was nodding, asking questions, being the supportive mother. I pushed lasagna around my plate. On the table between us was a Christmas Eve service program. Glossy trifold brochure, crimson and gold design. The front showed Riverside's stained glass dove window. Inside, it listed the order of service. Special music, Rebecca and Caleb duet, Light of the World. Tyler picked it up, grinning. Oh man, the Lovebirds get to do a duet. That's so cute. Hannah must be thrilled. Rebecca's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I looked at Tyler. What do you mean, Lovebirds? You know, Mom and Caleb, he laughed. They're always working together on music stuff. Hannah jokes about it all the time. Says they're like the dynamic duo. He took a bite of lasagna. Oh, actually, speaking of, I saw them last month at that boutique hotel in Franklin. The one with the blue door on Main Street. Mom was wearing that blue dress. The one you wore on your anniversary, Mom, remember? The dining room went very quiet. Rebecca's face was pale. "Tyler, that was a work meeting. We were planning the Christmas program." "Oh, for sure." Tyler nodded, oblivious. "I figured. I almost stopped to say hi, but you guys looked busy. Caleb was holding the door for you, real gentlemanlike." He kept eating. Rebecca's eyes met mine across the table. I saw it all there. The panic, the calculation, the desperation. I picked up my water glass. My hand was steady. "What day was that, Tyler?" He thought about it. "Oh, probably late October, maybe the 23rd or 24th. I was home that weekend for fall break." October 23rd, 6 weeks pregnant according to the test, right in the conception window. "And you said the hotel on Main Street?" I asked. My voice was calm, clinical. "The boutique one?" "Yeah, the fancy one, the Franklin. Looks expensive." Tyler grinned at Rebecca. "Must be some Christmas program. Hannah's going to flip when she sees what you're planning." Rebecca stood up abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to check on dessert." She walked out of the dining room. I heard the kitchen door swing shut. Tyler looked confused. "Did I say something wrong?" I set down my water glass. The sound it made on the table, that soft thunk, felt final, like a gavel. "No," I said. "You said something very right." Thursday morning, Dr. Patricia Chen pulled me aside after the midweek service. She's 58, been a member of Riverside for 12 years. She's also Rebecca's OBGYN. I've known Dr. Chen long enough to recognize when something's bothering her. We stood in the parking lot. About 40 or 50 members were still milling around, saying goodbye, making plans for the weekend. Dr. Chen smiled and waved at people, but her eyes were serious. "Pastor David," she said quietly, "I need to talk to you about something. It's delicate." "Okay." She glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. "Rebecca came to see me last week. She told me about the pregnancy." I nodded. "She also told me—" Dr. Chen hesitated. "She told me that you two had a reconciliation weekend in late October, that you'd been having marital difficulties but worked through them, and that's when she conceived." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "She said that?" "Yes." Dr. Chen's eyes were full of sympathy. "Pastor, I'm not asking you to confirm or deny your private marital details. That's between you and Rebecca. But as her doctor and your friend, I need you to know something." She took a breath. "The conception dates don't align with what she told me. Based on the HCG levels in her blood work and the dating ultrasound, conception occurred around October 23rd, maybe the 24th. She was very specific about this reconciliation weekend being October 19th, October 23rd, the day Tyler saw them at the Franklin Hotel." "Dr. Chen," I said slowly, "are you telling me Rebecca lied to you about when she conceived?" "I'm telling you that the dates don't match, and I'm telling you that Rebecca asked me some very unusual questions during that visit. Questions about paternity testing, about whether anyone else would have access to her medical records, about what information appears on birth certificates." Dr. Chen touched my arm. Her hand was warm. "Pastor, Rebecca's conception dates, they don't align with what she told me about you two. I'm sorry, but as her doctor and your friend, I needed you to know." I looked past her, at the church building. The stained glass dove window caught the afternoon sun. Beautiful, peaceful, holy. Everything a church should be. Everything a marriage should be. Everything a lie can look like if you polish it enough. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me." Dr. Chen squeezed my arm once, then walked away. I stood in that parking lot for a long time, watching church members get into their cars and drive home to their families. Normal people with normal problems. People who'd come to me for counseling, for guidance, for hope. People I'd helped because I believed in mercy, because I believed in second chances, because I taught them that forgiveness was infinite. I taught mercy, but I forgot to teach consequences. The words came to me clearly, like something I'd always known but never admitted. I got in my car and drove home. That night, I confronted Rebecca. 11:30 p.m. The kids were in bed. Tyler in his childhood room, Hannah at her apartment near campus. Just Rebecca and me in my study. The door closed. I'd brought Rebecca's phone. Margaret had given it back to me that afternoon. I'd spent 2 hours reading through the messages. All of them. 8 months of an affair documented in wind chime notifications and rose gold light. Rebecca sat in the leather armchair across from my desk. She was wearing her nightgown, no makeup. She looked tired, older. I placed the phone on the desk between us. Next to it, I placed the positive pregnancy test. Next to that, I opened my burgundy sermon journal to the Christmas Eve sermon notes. Family miracles still happen. The crossed-out words stared up at us. "David," Rebecca started. "Don't." My voice was quiet, steady. "Don't say anything yet. Just listen." She nodded. "I found your phone on Monday. Margaret gave it to me. I've read every message, all 206 of them. I know about Caleb. I know it's been going on since March. I know about the hotel in Franklin. Tyler saw you there, October 23rd. Rebecca's face crumbled. Tears started immediately. "And I know," I continued, "that you're pregnant with his child. Dr. Chen told me the conception date. It matches the hotel visit. It doesn't match anything you told me about us. David, please." I had a vasectomy in 2006. We tried to reverse it in 2016. It failed. Dr. Brennan told us it was permanent. You were there. You heard him say it. You knew I couldn't get you pregnant. The study was silent except for Rebecca's crying. "So when you handed me that test," I said, "when you called it a miracle, you knew you were lying. You knew it wasn't mine. You knew it was his." Rebecca was sobbing now, hands over her face, shoulders shaking. "How could you do this?" I asked. Not angry, just curious, clinical, like I was diagnosing a problem. "How could you sleep with our daughter's fiancé? How could you stand next to him on that stage, singing about creating beautiful things together, while Hannah sat in the front row, wearing the necklace you gave her? I didn't mean for it to happen." Rebecca's voice was muffled by her hands. It started so slowly. He was kind. He listened. You were always gone. Conferences, retreats, counseling sessions. I felt invisible. I felt old, and Caleb made me feel seen. "So you had an affair?" "Yes." "For 8 months?" "Yes." "And when you got pregnant, you thought you could pass it off as mine?" She looked up at me, mascara running down her cheeks, eyes red and swollen. "David, we can fix this. We can say the baby is ours. We can adopt it together after it's born. Hannah never has to know. The church never has to know. You've taught forgiveness for 18 years. Show me forgiveness now. Show me mercy." I stared at her. This woman I'd married 32 years ago. This woman who'd stood beside me when we started this church with 400 people in a warehouse. This woman who'd raised our children, led our worship team, smiled at thousands of Sunday mornings. This woman I didn't know at all. "Rebecca," I said slowly, "are you asking me to lie to our daughter? To pretend that her fiancé didn't impregnate her mother? To raise that child as mine while she marries the father? I'm asking you to save our family." "Our family?" I let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "Rebecca, you destroyed our family the moment you slept with Caleb. You destroyed it every day for 8 months. You destroyed it when you got pregnant and decided to lie about it." "Then fix it," she was shouting now, standing. "You're the pastor. You tell everyone else how to fix their marriages. You tell them mercy is infinite. You tell them God's grace covers everything. So cover this. Fix this." I closed my sermon journal. The leather creaked, that familiar sound. It used to comfort me. "I taught mercy," I said quietly, "but I forgot to teach consequences." Rebecca froze. "What?" "For 18 years, I've preached grace, forgiveness, second chances. I've told people that mercy means giving someone another opportunity. That love means staying, no matter what." I looked at the sermon journal, at the crossed-out words. I was wrong. "David, forgiveness doesn't mean giving you another opportunity to destroy our daughter. Mercy doesn't mean enabling your lies. Grace doesn't mean I pretend this didn't happen." I stood up. "I'm filing for divorce. You and Caleb will be removed from your positions. I'm telling Hannah the truth, and I'm not adopting that baby." Rebecca's face went white. "You can't. David, you can't. The church will survive. They've survived worse than this. Hannah will never forgive me." "No," I said. "She probably won't." Rebecca collapsed back into the chair. She was crying again, but differently now. Desperate, gasping sobs. "Please," she whispered. "Please, David, I'm begging you. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy. I'll break it off with Caleb. I'll tell him to leave. Just, please don't tell Hannah. Please don't destroy our family. I looked at her for a long time. Then I picked up my sermon journal and walked out of the study. Behind me, I heard Rebecca's voice, breaking. The church is watching, David. Everyone is watching. If you do this, you'll lose everything. I paused at the door. Let them watch, I said, and I left her there, alone with her choices. Friday morning, 2 a.m. I was sitting in my car in the church parking deck. I'd been driving around Nashville for 3 hours, nowhere to go. Couldn't go home, Rebecca was there. Couldn't go to Hannah's, she didn't know yet. Couldn't go to Joel's, I wasn't ready to tell anyone else. So, I ended up here. Empty parking deck, level 3. Security cameras in every corner. The overhead lights hummed, fluorescent and cold. My phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. Pastor David, can we talk? Please, I need to explain. I stared at the message. The blue light from my screen was the only illumination in the car. I texted back, parking deck, level 3, now. He arrived 10 minutes later. His car pulled into the spot next to mine. A leased BMW 3 Series, black, expensive. I'd always wondered how he afforded it on an associate pastor's salary. Now I knew. Rebecca controlled the music budget, $400,000 a year. Easy to hide a few extra payments to your lover. Caleb got out of his car. He was wearing sweatpants and a Riverside church hoodie, hair messy, eyes red. He looked like he'd been crying. Good. He approached my window. I rolled it down. Get in, I said. He walked around and got in the passenger seat. The car filled with the smell of his cologne. Something expensive. The same cologne he wore every Sunday when he stood next to my wife and sang about creating beautiful things together. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Caleb said, Pastor, I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. I never meant for this to happen, I swear. Rebecca, she was kind to me when I first started. She mentored me, taught me about worship leading, about the music ministry. And then one night we were working late on the Easter program, and she what? Caleb swallowed. She kissed me. And you kissed her back. Yes, I did. I was weak. I was flattered. She's beautiful and talented, and she made me feel, don't. My voice was flat. Don't tell me how my wife made you feel. Tell me how you justified sleeping with your fiancé's mother for 8 months. Caleb's face crumbled. I love Hannah. I do. I'm going to marry her. This thing with Rebecca, it's not real. It's just what? A midlife crisis? A mistake? An affair that resulted in a pregnancy? I turned to look at him. Really look at him. 28 years old, handsome, talented, weak. You're carrying my daughter's engagement ring in your pocket while you're sleeping with her mother. What kind of man does that? A terrible one. Caleb was crying now. I'm a terrible person. I know that. But Pastor, please don't tell Hannah. If you tell her, it will destroy her. It will destroy everything. It's already destroyed. No. He grabbed my arm. I looked down at his hand. He let go quickly. No, it doesn't have to be. We can fix this. Rebecca wants to say the baby is yours. We can keep going like nothing happened. I'll break it off with Rebecca. I'll marry Hannah. We can all move forward. No one has to know. I stared at him. Caleb, I said slowly, are you actually suggesting that I let you marry my daughter while you pretend you didn't impregnate her mother? I'm suggesting we protect Hannah from unnecessary pain. Unnecessary? She doesn't need to know about this. It would only hurt her. What good does the truth do if it just causes suffering? I felt something shift inside me, something cold and hard and final. Get out of my car. Pastor, get out. Caleb didn't move. If you tell Hannah, if you fire me, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I'll tell them you're not the forgiving pastor you pretend to be. I'll tell them you abandoned your wife when she needed you most. I'll destroy your reputation. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it clearly. A coward wearing a worship leader's clothes. You know what I see, Caleb? I said quietly. I see a man who can't even own his own sins. A man who seduced his fiancé's mother and then blamed the victim. A man who threatens blackmail because he's too weak to accept consequences. I leaned closer. You want to destroy my reputation? Go ahead. Tell everyone I chose my daughter over my image. Tell them I refused to enable an abuser. Tell them I taught consequences along with mercy. I'll wear that badge proudly. Caleb's face went pale. You're going to regret this, he said. No, I said. You are. He got out of the car, slammed the door, walked back to his BMW. The engine roared to life. Tires squealed as he drove away. I sat in the empty parking deck, listening to the fluorescent lights hum. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Rebecca's mother, Diane. David, we need to talk. It's urgent. Can you come to my house tomorrow morning? I closed my eyes. This was about to get worse. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. I drove to Diane Reeves's house in Belle Meade, Rebecca's mother, 57 years old. She'd been a member of Riverside since we started. She'd watched Hannah and Tyler grow up, hosted Christmas dinners, babysit when we needed her. She'd been my ally, my friend. Now she was sitting across from me in her living room, and her hands were shaking. David, she said, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. I waited. This isn't Rebecca's first affair. The room tilted. Diane's eyes filled with tears. 12 years ago, 2012, there was a worship intern named Austin Reed, 23 years old. He was here for a summer program. Very talented, good kid. I remembered Austin, vaguely. A college student doing an internship. He'd left suddenly. August of 2012. We'd been told he got a full-time position at a church in Oregon. Rebecca had an affair with him, Diane said. It lasted 3 months, June through August. Your father found out. My father, Pastor Hartwell Sr. He'd been the pastor before me. I'd taken over in 2006 when he retired. Dad knew? He confronted Rebecca. He was furious. He told her if she didn't end it immediately, he'd tell you everything. He'd remove her from the worship team. He'd make sure everyone knew what she'd done. Diane was crying now. Rebecca begged him not to. She said it was a mistake, that she'd end it, that she'd never do it again. She promised. And Dad believed her? He wanted to believe her. He loved you. He didn't want to see you hurt, so he made a deal with her. He sent Austin away, paid for his relocation to Oregon, gave him a glowing reference letter, told everyone it was a great opportunity for the young man, and Rebecca promised to stay faithful. I felt something crack open inside my chest. 2 years later, I said slowly, Dad had that financial scandal, the one that destroyed his reputation. Embezzlement charges, missing church funds. He resigned in disgrace. Diane nodded. It wasn't embezzlement, David. It was the money he paid to relocate Austin. $10,000 from the discretionary fund. He'd coded it as relocation assistance for staff. But when the board audited the books, they found it. They asked questions. Your father couldn't explain it without revealing Rebecca's affair. So he took the blame. He said he'd mismanaged the funds, that he'd made an error in judgment. He sacrificed his reputation to protect my marriage. Yes. And Rebecca knew this. Yes. And she did it again anyway. Diane collapsed forward, hands over her face, sobbing. I'm so sorry, David. I should have told you 12 years ago. I should have made her tell you. But she's my daughter. I hoped she'd learned. I thought it was a one-time mistake. I didn't know she'd do it again. I sat there in Diane's living room, surrounded by family photos. Pictures of Rebecca as a child, Rebecca's wedding day, Hannah and Tyler as babies, Christmases and birthdays and graduations, a lifetime of moments built on lies. My father died thinking I believed he was an embezzler, I said. My voice sounded distant, clinical. He died in shame because he covered for Rebecca, and she repaid him by doing it again, with our daughter's fiancé. Diane couldn't speak. She just cried. I stood up. Thank you for telling me. David, what are you going to do? I looked at the photos on her wall, at Rebecca's smiling face in every frame. I'm going to make sure the truth wins this time, I said. And I walked out. Monday morning, Joel Thompson's office, the executive pastor's suite on the second floor of the church administration building. I'd called him Sunday night, told him I needed to talk, urgently, about a personnel matter. Now I sat across from his desk and I told him everything: the pregnancy test, the vasectomy, the phone messages, the hotel, the paternity timeline, the confrontation, Caleb's threats, Diane's revelation about the previous affair, and my father's sacrifice. Joel listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "David, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I can't imagine what you're going through. I need your help with next steps," I said. "Rebecca and Caleb need to be removed from their positions. I need to tell Hannah before the engagement party on the 16th. I need to address the board, and I need to prepare for the possibility that this goes public." Joel nodded slowly. Then he leaned back in his chair. "David, I'm going to say something, and I need you to hear me out, okay? Okay. Don't do this." I stared at him. "What? Don't tell Hannah. Don't fire Rebecca and Caleb. Don't make this public." Joel's face was serious, concerned. "David, I love you like a brother. You know that. But I also love this church, and I'm asking you to think about what this will do to Riverside." "Joel, 8,500 members, David. 8,500 people who depend on this church for their spiritual lives. 50,000 people watching our live stream every week. We're in the middle of negotiating the acquisition of that satellite campus in Franklin. $3 million deal. We've got the Christmas Eve service coming up, our biggest outreach of the year. We've got staff to pay, ministries to fund, mission work to support." "I understand all that." "Do you?" Joel leaned forward. "Because if this goes public, David, it all falls apart. Half the congregation will leave. The satellite campus deal will collapse. Donors will pull funding. The media will have a field day. Megachurch pastor's family and sex scandal. Every sermon you've ever preached will be questioned. Every life you've touched will be tainted. So you're saying I should lie? I'm saying you should be strategic." Joel's voice was gentle, patient, like he was explaining something to a child. "Rebecca wants to say the baby is yours. Let her. Caleb wants to marry Hannah and move on. Let him. You can get a quiet divorce later, after the holidays, after the satellite campus deal closes, after things settle down. But right now, in this moment, you have a chance to protect everything you've built for 18 years. I looked at him, my closest friend, my executive pastor, the man who'd stood beside me through building campaigns and budget crises and staff conflicts. "You want me to let Hannah marry the man who got her mother pregnant. I want you to protect your daughter from unnecessary pain. What good does telling her do? It just destroys her. It destroys your family. It destroys this church. And for what? So you can feel righteous? So you can say, you told the truth?" "Joel." "David, I've watched you counsel hundreds of couples through affairs. You've told them all the same thing. Sometimes the loving thing to do is to protect people from information that will only hurt them. Sometimes mercy means bearing the burden alone. Sometimes grace means sacrificing your own need for justice to preserve something greater." Joel's eyes were pleading. This is one of those times. I sat there in Joel's office. Financial reports were spread across his desk. Charts showing our $12 million annual budget. Projections for the satellite campus. Attendance numbers, live stream metrics, all the machinery of a successful megachurch. All the reasons to stay silent. 8,500 members are watching, Joel said quietly. The Christmas Eve service is our biggest outreach of the year. Can you afford to blow this up? I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw what I'd become. A man who built a church so big that truth became inconvenient. A man who preached about integrity while hiding behind numbers. A man who told others to have courage while choosing comfort. I stood up. "Joel," I said, "the church is watching." "Good. Let them watch truth defeat lies for once." Here's the question I faced. Would you stay silent to save the church, protect 8,500 members, the Christmas outreach, the satellite campuses, or would you choose truth and risk losing everything? Type truth if you'd tell. Type silence if you'd protect the church. I need to know. What would you do? There's no easy answer. I get it. Some of you typed truth. Some typed silence. Both come from love, for family or for community. I don't judge either. But here's what I learned. Institutions survive. They always do. But people, the ones we love, they don't survive lies. And I'd already watched lies kill my father's reputation. I wasn't going to let lies kill my daughter's future. Joel's face hardened. David, if you do this, you'll regret it. I've been regretful my whole life, I said. I regret not seeing my wife's first affair. I regret not protecting my father from taking that blame. I regret building a church so focused on numbers that we forgot about souls. I walked toward the door. But I won't regret choosing my daughter over your budget. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I made a mistake. 18 years of mistakes. Today, I'm fixing one. I left his office. Behind me, I heard him say, "The church won't survive this, David." Maybe not, I thought, but I will. Tuesday afternoon. Coffee shop near Vanderbilt campus. Hannah had agreed to meet me for coffee. She'd sounded surprised on the phone. I rarely called her for one-on-one time. Usually we saw each other at church functions, at family dinners, in front of other people. I'd been a terrible father. She arrived wearing jeans and a Vanderbilt hoodie. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. And she was wearing the white gold cross necklace. It caught the light from the window, made tiny rainbows on the wall. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, ordered a latte. We sat at a corner table. About 15 or 20 college students filled the shop, studying, talking, living normal lives. Hannah smiled at me. "This is nice, Dad. I feel like we never get to just hang out anymore." "I know. I'm sorry about that." "Don't apologize. You're busy. I get it." She took a sip of her latte. "So what's up? You sounded serious on the phone." I looked at my daughter, 24 years old, graduate student, worship leader, engaged to be married, still wearing the necklace her mother gave her at baptism, still trusting, still innocent. Not for much longer. "Hannah, I need to talk to you about Caleb." Her face brightened. "Oh my gosh, yes. The engagement party is this Saturday. I'm so excited. Mom's been helping me plan everything. It's going to be beautiful. 250 people. The church is decorating the fellowship hall. Mom and Caleb are going to do a special song." "Hannah, stop." She stopped. Something in my voice. Something she'd never heard before. "Dad, what's wrong?" I looked at her, at the cross necklace, at her smile, at her trust, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not without proof. Not without making sure she'd believe me. Because if I told her now, Caleb would convince her I was lying. Rebecca would convince her I was having a breakdown, and Hannah would choose them over me, because she loved them, because she trusted them, because I'd taught her to always see the best in people. "Dad?" Hannah reached across the table, touched my hand. "You're scaring me. What's going on?" "I'm just worried about you," I said. My voice sounded weak, distant. "About the wedding, about everything." "Worried? Why?" "Caleb, does he treat you well? Is he kind to you?" Hannah laughed, relieved. "Oh my gosh, Dad, yes. He's amazing. He's so supportive of my studies. He's excited about my ministry. He tells me every day how much he loves me." She touched the cross necklace. "Mom says I'm lucky to have found someone so perfect. She and Caleb have this great relationship. He respects her so much. It makes me so happy that my fiancé and my mother get along." Each word was a knife. "Hannah?" "Dad, I know you and Mom have been having some issues lately. I can tell. You've been distant, cold. But that's between you two. Don't take it out on Caleb. He's been nothing but kind to our family. Maybe you're the one who needs to change." She said it gently, lovingly, but firmly. And I realized she wouldn't believe me, not without irrefutable proof. "You're right," I said. The words tasted like ash. "I'm sorry." Hannah squeezed my hand. "I love you, Dad, but I love Caleb too, and I'm going to marry him. I need you to be okay with that." I looked at her, at the cross necklace catching the light. I wanted to rip it off her neck and tell her the truth right now. Show her the phone messages. Show her the pregnancy test. Make her see what her mother and her fiancé had done. But I stayed silent. For now. "Okay," I said. Hannah smiled, relieved. She stood up, gave me another hug. "I have to run. Evening class, but Dad, thank you for checking in. It means a lot." She kissed my cheek. "I'll see you Saturday at the party. Caleb and I can't wait to celebrate with everyone." She walked away, The cross necklace disappeared into the crowd of students. I sat there alone, holding my coffee, watching through the window as my daughter walked back into a lie. Wednesday morning, an envelope arrived at my church office. Gene DX Laboratories. White 9 by 12 legal envelope, sealed with blue security tape. The address label said, Rebecca Lynn Reeves, her maiden name. I'd ordered the paternity test 2 weeks ago, through a colleague who worked at the hospital. Discreet. Private. No questions asked. I'd provided a sample from Caleb's coffee cup. He'd left it in the worship room after rehearsal. And I'd used Rebecca's medical records from Dr. Chen. Now, 3 weeks later, the results. Margaret had placed the envelope on my desk. She didn't say anything, just gave me a look full of sympathy and left the office. Closed the door behind her. I stared at the envelope. Heavy cardstock. Official, legal. The kind of paper that changes lives. I picked it up. It was heavier than I'd expected, substantial, like it contained more than just information, like it held the weight of consequences. The blue security tape made a ripping sound when I peeled it, sharp, final, like tearing through something that could never be fixed. Inside was a single sheet of paper, heavy stock, the Gene DX letterhead, the results formatted in clean professional columns. I read it once, then again. Probability of paternity, 99.997%. Alleged father, Caleb James Morrison. Result not excluded. The paper was so heavy in my hands, I let it slip. It hit the floor with a sound like a gavel. 99.997%. No more doubt. No more questions. No more hoping I was wrong. Just math. Cold, irrefutable math. I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at that paper on the floor. Then I picked up my phone and called my attorney. I need to file for divorce, I said, and I need to do it immediately. Friday morning, 3 a.m., I was in the sanctuary, couldn't sleep, hadn't slept more than 2 or 3 hours a night since I'd found the pregnancy test, 25 days ago. It felt like years. I'd driven to the church around midnight, used my sanctuary key ring, the heavy brass ring with 14 keys, the wooden cross keychain worn smooth from 18 years of thumb rubbing. The keys jingled as I walked through the empty building. Every sound echoed. The sanctuary was dark, 2,200 empty seats, just me and the shadows, and the moonlight coming through the stained glass dove window. Pearl white dove, wings spread. The moonlight made it look gray, almost invisible, like it was fading away. I sat in the front pew, the same pew where I'd sat with hundreds of people over the years, couples in crisis, parents who'd lost children, people battling addiction, cancer, depression, bankruptcy, divorce. I'd counseled them all, told them about hope, about mercy, about God's faithfulness. Now, I was the one sitting here, broken. On the pew next to me was a pill bottle, Ambien, 30 tablets. I'd picked up the prescription yesterday. Told my doctor I was having trouble sleeping, stress. He didn't ask questions. I held the bottle, turned it over in my hands. The plastic rattled. It would be easy, peaceful, 30 pills. Go to sleep in this sanctuary, never wake up. Never face Hannah's devastation when she learned the truth. Never watch my church split. Never see Rebecca's face again. Never feel this pain again. Easy. My phone buzzed, a text message. The screen glowed in the dark sanctuary. Hannah. Can't sleep. Been thinking about you. Love you, Dad. Praying for your sermon. I stared at that message. Hannah, praying for me. While I sat here contemplating leaving her forever, while she still wore that cross necklace, while she still trusted her mother, while she still planned to marry Caleb in 6 months. If I died tonight, she'd never know the truth. She'd marry Caleb. She'd watch him raise his own child, believing it was her half-sibling. She'd grow old next to a man who'd betrayed her in the worst way possible. She'd spend her life in a lie, and I'd be the coward who chose death over truth. I looked up at the dove window. God, I whispered. My voice cracked, echoed in the empty sanctuary. I taught mercy for 18 years. I forgave everyone but myself. I thought that made me righteous. But mercy without truth enabled this. My daughter is suffering because I was a coward, because I taught her to always forgive, always give second chances, always see the best in people. Tears ran down my face. If forgiving Rebecca means lying to Hannah, then I choose truth, even if it destroys me, even if I lose the church, even if I lose everything. I choose truth. The sanctuary was silent. Then slowly light began to appear, soft pink and gold, dawn breaking. The light hit the stained glass dove window. The pearl white glass began to glow. The dove turned white again. Beautiful. Alive. The light spread across the sanctuary floor. Moving patterns, like something breathing. I looked at the pill bottle in my hand. Then I looked at Hannah's text message. Then I looked at the dove, and I put the pills down. I placed them on the pew, stood up, walked to the pulpit. My burgundy sermon journal was there. I'd left it yesterday after working on the Christmas Eve message. I opened it. The leather creaked, that familiar sound. I flipped to a blank page, and I began to write a new sermon. Not about family miracles, not about cheap grace, not about mercy without consequences. A sermon about truth, about the courage to choose honesty over comfort, about protecting the people we love by exposing the ones who hurt them, about how real forgiveness requires real justice. I wrote until the sun came up, until the sanctuary filled with light, until the maintenance staff arrived and found me there, writing, until I knew what I had to do. I had to tell Hannah. I had to show her the evidence. I had to let her choose truth over the lie, even if it broke her heart, because that's what love actually meant. Not enabling, not protecting people from consequences, not preserving comfort at the cost of honesty. Love meant truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. I closed my journal, the leather creaked, and I went to tell my daughter the truth. Saturday morning, December 14th, 2 days before Hannah's engagement party. I called Hannah and asked her to meet me, not at a coffee shop, not at the church, at Dr. Sarah Winters' office. Dr. Winters was a pediatric surgeon at Mercy General. She'd been a member of Riverside for 8 years. More importantly, she was Hannah's mentor, the woman who'd encouraged Hannah to pursue medicine, who'd written her recommendation letters for graduate school, who'd been like a second mother to her. If anyone could help Hannah through what I was about to tell her, it was Sarah. I'd called Sarah the night before, explained the situation, asked if she'd be there as support. She'd agreed immediately, said she'd noticed something off about Caleb for months, the way he looked at Rebecca, the way he spoke to Hannah. She'd tried to warn Hannah gently, but Hannah hadn't listened. Now Hannah sat in Sarah's office, a comfortable room with soft lighting, a couch, a box of tissues on the coffee table. Sarah sat in a chair to the side. I sat across from Hannah. Hannah looked confused, worried. She wore jeans and a sweater, and the white gold cross necklace, always the cross necklace. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked. "Why are we here? Why is Dr. Winters—" "Hannah," I said gently, "I need you to know that I love you more than my own life. Everything I'm about to tell you comes from that love, okay?" Her face went pale. "Dad, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry." I took a breath. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something about Caleb and about your mother." "What about them?" I reached into my bag, pulled out the manila envelope, the one I'd been carrying for 3 days. Inside was the paternity test, Rebecca's phone records, screenshots of text messages, hotel receipts, Tyler's written statement about seeing them at the Franklin, Dr. Chen's statement about the conception timeline, all the evidence. I placed the envelope on the coffee table between us. "Before I say anything else," I said, "I need you to know that I've failed you. I taught you that love means endless forgiveness, that mercy means infinite chances, that seeing the best in people is always right." My voice cracked. "I was wrong. Real love protects, and I didn't protect you. I should have seen this sooner. I should have warned you, but I didn't want to believe it, and I'm so sorry." "Dad, what are you talking about?" I opened the envelope, pulled out the paternity test results, placed them on the table. "Your mother is pregnant. She told me it was mine, but I had a vasectomy that failed 8 years ago. I can't have children." I slid the paper toward her. "This is a paternity test. It proves the baby isn't mine." Hannah stared at the paper, not touching it, not reading it, just staring. "Then whose? Caleb's." The room went silent. Hannah's face didn't change. She just sat there, frozen, like her brain couldn't process what I'd just said. That's not possible. Caleb wouldn't, Mom wouldn't. I pulled out the phone records, the screenshots, laid them on the table one by one. They've been having an affair for 8 months, since March, since right after we hired him, since right after he proposed to you. Hannah picked up one of the screenshots. Her hands were shaking. I can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel young again. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. Hannah read them silently. Then the next one, then the next. Her face was white, bloodless. These are from Mom's phone? Yes. To Caleb? Yes. She put the papers down, looked at me. Her eyes were wide, confused, like a child trying to understand something impossible. Is the baby? I nodded. Hannah was silent, just staring at the paternity test, at the phone records, at the evidence spread across the coffee table. Then she touched her cross necklace, the one Rebecca had given her at baptism, the one she'd worn every single day for 18 years. Is this true? She whispered. Dad, tell me this isn't true. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but it's true. Hannah's fingers closed around the cross. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. How could she? Her voice was small, broken. How could Mom do this to me? How could Caleb? He told me he loved me. He asked me to marry him. We were planning a wedding. We were planning a life together. How could he? Her voice broke. She looked down at the cross necklace in her hand, at the white gold, at the tiny diamond catching the light, at the engraving on the back, to Hannah, love Mom and Dad, and she ripped it off. The chain broke with a small snapping sound. The cross fell from her hand. It skittered across Dr. Winter's floor, made a tiny ringing sound when it hit the wall. Hannah stared at where it had landed. She gave me this when I was 8 years old, she said. Her voice was empty, hollow. She put it around my neck and told me it was a symbol of God's love, of her love. She cried. She said she'd always protect me, always be there for me, always. Her voice broke into sobs. How could she? How could she do this? How could she sleep with my fiancé? How could she get pregnant with his baby? How could she stand next to him every Sunday and sing about love and faith and... She couldn't finish. She collapsed forward, hands over her face, sobbing. I moved to the couch, pulled her into my arms. She buried her face in my shoulder and cried, deep, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Dr. Winters brought the tissue box, sat next to us, put her hand on Hannah's back. We sat like that for a long time, Hannah crying, me holding her, Sarah providing quiet support. Finally, Hannah pulled back. Her face was red and swollen, mascara running down her cheeks. Does Caleb know? She asked. About the baby? Yes. And he was going to marry me anyway? While his baby was... She couldn't finish, started crying again. Hannah, Dr. Winters said gently, I need you to know something. I've been watching Caleb for months, the way he looked at your mother, the way he spoke about you. I tried to mention it to you, but you didn't want to hear it. You saw the best in him. That's not your fault. That's what your parents taught you. But sweetheart, Caleb was never worthy of you. This isn't about you not being enough. You're everything. He was the one who wasn't enough. Hannah looked at her, then at me. Did you know, Dad? Did you see it and not tell me? The question I'd been dreading. No, I said. My voice was thick with tears. I didn't see it until 3 weeks ago. And I should have. I should have been paying attention. I was so busy building the church, preaching to everyone else, that I didn't see what was happening in my own family. I failed you. I'm so sorry. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You didn't fail me, Dad. You're here now. You're telling me the truth, even though it hurts, even though it destroys everything. She wiped her eyes, looked at the broken cross necklace on the floor. Mom failed me. Caleb failed me. But you chose me over the lie. That's what love actually is. She hugged me, and we both cried. Monday morning, emergency board meeting. Riverside Community Church had a 12-member board of elders, business leaders, professionals, longtime members. Good people who'd helped build this church from the ground up. I'd called the emergency meeting on Sunday night, told them it was urgent, personnel matter, confidential. Now we sat in the boardroom, second floor of the administration building, long conference table, 12 chairs. My burgundy sermon journal sat in front of me. Next to it, all the evidence, paternity test, phone records, hotel receipts, Tyler's statement, Dr. Chen's statement, Diane's confession about the previous affair, and my father's sacrifice. I told them everything, no sugarcoating, no euphemisms, just the truth, laid out clearly and completely. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Marcus Goldstein, the board chairman, spoke. He was 63, owned a construction company, been with Riverside for 15 years. "Pastor David," he said, his voice heavy, "I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you and Hannah are going through." "Thank you. What do you need from us?" "I need the board's authority to terminate Rebecca Hartwell and Caleb Morrison from their positions. For cause. Effective immediately. I've already consulted with our attorney. The morality clause in both their contracts covers this situation." Two board members shifted uncomfortably. Robert Chen and Patricia Morrison, both in their 50s, both business owners, both concerned about optics. Robert spoke first. "Pastor, I understand you're hurting, but is termination really necessary? Couldn't we handle this more quietly? Rebecca has been with us for 18 years. Caleb is talented. The Christmas Eve service is in 10 days, our biggest outreach. Can we really afford—" "Robert," I said quietly, "are you suggesting we keep a man on staff who impregnated his fiancé's mother? That we let him stand on our stage and lead worship while his child grows in his future mother-in-law's womb?" Robert's face flushed. "I'm suggesting we think strategically." "No." Hannah's voice cut through the room. She was sitting next to me. I'd asked her if she wanted to be present for the vote. She'd said yes, wanted to face this head on. "No," she repeated, looking at Robert. "You're not suggesting strategy. You're suggesting we lie. You're suggesting we protect the church's image over protecting people. You're suggesting my father enable the man who betrayed me." Her voice was steady, strong. "I won't let you do that to him." Patricia Morrison leaned forward. "Hannah, dear, no one is trying to hurt you. We're just considering all the angles." "Then consider this angle," Hannah said. "If you vote to keep Caleb and my mother on staff, I will resign from the worship team. And I will tell every single person in this church exactly why. I will make sure everyone knows that the board chose money over morals, numbers over people, image over integrity." The room went silent. Then Margaret Stone spoke up. She was the only non-board member present. She'd taken notes at every board meeting for 30 years. She'd earned the right to speak. "I've been with this church for 3 decades, she said quietly. "I've watched us grow from 400 to 8,500 members. I've seen pastors come and go. I've seen scandals covered up and truth buried. And every single time we chose image over integrity, we died a little bit more." She looked around the table. "This is our chance to do it right, to choose truth, even when it costs us." Marcus nodded. "I agree." He looked around the table. "All in favor of accepting Pastor David's recommendation to terminate Rebecca Hartwell and Caleb Morrison for cause, with immediate effect?" 10 hands went up. 2 stayed down, Robert and Patricia. "Motion carried," Marcus said. The gavel fell. That sound, sharp, final, just. I looked at Hannah. She was crying, but she was smiling too. Truth had won. Thursday, December 19th, 5 days before Christmas Eve. Hannah and I sat in my attorney's office, signing papers, restraining orders preventing Rebecca and Caleb from contacting Hannah, divorce filings, custody arrangements. Rebecca had agreed to closed adoption for the baby. She'd signed the papers without argument. She'd moved out of our house 3 days ago, gone to her sister's place in Memphis, didn't fight the divorce, didn't try to defend herself, just left. Caleb had left too, returned to Georgia. His mother, Diane, had called me, apologized, said she'd raised him better than this, that she was ashamed. I told her I didn't blame her. We can't control our children's choices. The church had responded surprisingly well. I'd sent an email to the congregation on Tuesday, not detailed, just enough. Rebecca and Caleb are no longer on staff due to moral failure. I'm asking for your grace as my family heals. Within 24 hours, I'd received over 1,000 messages of support. Some people left. About 200 members. They wanted the perfect pastor with the perfect family and the perfect church. When reality intruded, they couldn't handle it. But 8,300 stayed. And they showed up. With meals, with prayers, with hugs, with tears. With stories of their own betrayals, their own failures, their own journeys toward truth. The church wasn't dying. It was shedding its false skin, becoming something more honest, more real, more human. On Friday night, Tyler came home from college. He'd heard everything. He was angry, at Rebecca, at Caleb, at the situation. But when he walked in the door, he didn't lecture. He didn't judge. He just hugged me. "Dad," he said, "remember when I was 15? You missed my debate championship for an emergency surgery. I was so mad. Mom kept saying you didn't care about us, that you only cared about work. I believed her for years." I remembered. That had hurt. "But Dad," Tyler continued, his voice thick, "that patient, you saved their life that day. You save lives. You show up for people when they need you most. And Mom, she made me think you were the problem. She poisoned me against you, and you never defended yourself. You just kept working, kept saving people, kept showing up." He was crying now. "I should have trusted you, the man who always shows up, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." He hugged me tighter. "I'm sorry, Dad, and I'm proud of you, for choosing truth, for protecting Hannah, for being brave enough to lose everything rather than enable evil." We stood in the hallway, father and son, both crying, and I realized we were going to be okay. Not the same, but okay. December 24th, Christmas Eve, 7 p.m. Riverside Community Church. The sanctuary was full, 2,200 people in the pews. The live stream showed 128,000 viewers online, the highest number we'd ever had. Everyone knew something had happened. The email, Rebecca and Caleb's sudden departure, the rumors, the questions. Tonight, they'd get answers. I stood backstage in the small room where I always waited before services. Tyler and Hannah were with me, both wearing their Sunday best, both nervous. Hannah wasn't wearing the cross necklace. She'd put it in a drawer, said maybe someday she'd fix it, but not yet. The break was too fresh. My burgundy sermon journal sat on the table, open to tonight's sermon, not the one I'd planned 3 weeks ago about family miracles. A new one, written in the pre-dawn hours of that Friday morning when I'd chosen life over death in the empty sanctuary. The title, The Courage of Truth. "Dad," Hannah said quietly, "are you sure you want to do this? You don't have to tell them everything. You could just say it was personal issues. They'd understand." "I know," I said, "but they deserve the truth, and I deserve to speak it." Tyler nodded. "We're with you, Dad. Whatever happens." The stage manager knocked. 5 minutes, Pastor." I picked up my sermon journal. The leather creaked, that familiar sound, no longer comforting, no longer ominous, just real. We walked toward the stage. The sanctuary was beautiful. Candlelight service, 2,200 candles flickering. The stained glass dove window glowed from the exterior lights. Pearl white glass surrounded by blue, illuminated by carefully placed floods. The glass caught the candlelight from inside, making the dove seem to shimmer. Margaret was in the front row. Pastor Joel sat a few rows back. We'd talked earlier that week, and he'd apologized for pushing me to lie. Said he'd learned something about institutional integrity versus personal courage. Sarah Winters was there. Diane, Rebecca's mother, crying quietly. Tyler's friends from high school, Hannah's classmates from Vanderbilt, my church, my family, my witnesses. I walked to the pulpit, placed my sermon journal on the stand. The crimson and gold Christmas Eve service program sat there too, the one that had listed special music Rebecca and Caleb duet. Someone had crossed it out. Written in, special message, Pastor David. I looked out at the congregation, at the camera recording for the live stream, at Tyler and Hannah in the front row. I took a breath. "Good evening," I said. "Merry Christmas Eve." A murmured response. "Merry Christmas." I had a sermon planned for tonight about family miracles, about how God works through the ordinary to create the extraordinary, about hope finding a way in the darkness. I paused. But I need to tell you something more important than a sermon. The sanctuary went quiet. I've taught you mercy for 18 years, I said. My voice was steady, clear. I've preached about forgiveness, about second chances, about seeing the best in people, about grace that covers all sins. And I meant every word. I looked at my sermon journal. But I forgot to teach you something equally important. I forgot to teach you about consequences, about boundaries, about the difference between enabling evil and forgiving sinners, about how real love sometimes means choosing truth over comfort. I told them. Not all the details, not the graphic parts, but the truth, that my wife had betrayed me, that my daughter's fiancé had betrayed her, that a child had been conceived in that betrayal, that I'd been asked to lie about it, to cover it up, to preserve the church's image at the cost of my daughter's future, that I'd chosen truth instead. My voice broke twice, once when I talked about finding the pregnancy test, once when I talked about Hannah ripping off her cross necklace. But I kept going. I've learned something these past 3 weeks, I said. Mercy without truth enables evil. Grace without accountability destroys the very people we're trying to save. And institutions, even churches, especially churches, survive. They always do. But people don't survive lies. I looked at the dove window, at the pearl-white glass glowing in the candlelight. Some of you will leave after tonight. I understand. You came here for the perfect pastor with the perfect family and the perfect church. I can't give you that anymore. I can only give you a broken man who chose his daughter over his reputation, who chose truth over comfort, who chose consequences along with mercy. The sanctuary was absolutely silent. But if you stay, I said, I promise you something. I'll never lie to you. I'll never choose image over integrity. I'll never ask you to enable evil for the sake of numbers. And I'll teach you what I should have been teaching all along, that real love requires real courage, that real grace demands real justice, that real faith means telling the truth, even when it costs everything. I closed my sermon journal. I taught mercy, but I forgot to teach consequences, I said. I won't make that mistake again. I stepped back from the pulpit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Tyler stood up, then Hannah, then Margaret, then Sarah Winters, then row by row, section by section, the entire sanctuary stood up. 2,200 people, on their feet, applauding, not for my strength, not for my success, not for my perfect ministry, for my brokenness, for my honesty, for my willingness to lose everything rather than lie. I looked at Hannah. She was crying and smiling at the same time. Tyler was wiping his eyes. Margaret was beaming. And through the stained glass dove window, I could see the stars. Clear winter night. Beautiful. True. The applause continued for a long time. When it finally quieted, I said one more thing. The baby will be placed for adoption. A good family, screened carefully, loved completely. Hannah has agreed to write a letter for the child, explaining the medical history so they'll have answers when they're old enough to ask. I looked at my daughter. That child didn't choose this. They deserve a chance at a life built on truth. Hannah nodded. Thank you, I said to the congregation, to the cameras, to the 128,000 people watching online. Thank you for staying, for listening, for loving me even when I'm broken. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, they responded. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I felt clean. April 15th, 4 months later, spring. I was in my backyard, teaching Tyler and Hannah to plant tomatoes. Not the backyard of the old house. That house, the big pastoral residence with the manicured lawn and the perfect flower beds. I'd sold it in February. Too many memories, too much pretense. I'd bought a smaller place, a townhouse in East Nashville, 2 bedrooms, a little backyard with a wooden fence and afternoon sun. Real, comfortable, mine. Hannah had moved in temporarily. She'd taken the spring semester off from Vanderbilt, medical leave, needed time to heal. She was seeing a therapist twice a week, reading, praying, figuring out who she was without Caleb, without her mother, without the lie. Tyler came home most weekends, said he wanted to be there for us, for Dad and Hannah, for the family that remained. Now, this Sunday afternoon, we were planting vegetables. I'd never been much of a gardener, but Sarah Winters had suggested it, said there was something healing about growing things. about cutting away the diseased parts so the healthy parts could thrive. Okay, I said, kneeling in the dirt. When you plant tomatoes, you have to be ruthless about pruning. See these little shoots growing in the joint between the main stem and the branches? They're called suckers. Hannah and Tyler leaned in to look. They seem harmless, I continued. They're green, they're growing. But if you leave them, they'll drain nutrients from the main plant. They'll prevent fruit from forming. You have to cut them away. I demonstrated, pinching off a sucker. Cut away the diseased parts, or they'll kill the whole plant. Hannah smiled. You're not just talking about tomatoes, are you, Dad? I smiled back. Am I ever just talking about tomatoes? She laughed, a real laugh. The first one I'd heard in months. Tyler was digging holes for the seedlings. So, Mom reached out to me last week, he said casually. Called my phone, wanted to know if I'd talk to her. What did you say? I said not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. The wound's too fresh. He placed a tomato seedling in the hole. Was that okay, that I said no? Tyler, I said gently, you get to decide your boundaries. Not me, not her. You. If you need more time, take it. If you never want to talk to her again, that's your choice. Either way, I'm proud of you. He nodded, wiped his eyes, kept planting. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, The adoption was finalized last week. The family sent me a letter. They're good people, a doctor and a teacher. They have a 2-year-old daughter. They said they'll tell the baby the truth when they're old enough to understand. That they're loved, that they were born from complicated circumstances, but placed with purpose. That's good, I said. Yeah. Hannah touched the soil, let it run through her fingers. I wrote them back, told them about the medical history, Mom's side, Dad's side, Caleb's family, everything they'll need to know. And I told them that baby is innocent, that none of this was their fault, that they deserve to be loved completely. They do, I said. Yeah, Hannah whispered. They do. We planted in comfortable silence for a while. The sun was warm, the soil smelled rich and dark, alive. Above us, hanging from the oak tree, was a small stained glass sun catcher, a white dove. I'd bought it online after Christmas, wanted something to remember that moment in the sanctuary. That morning when dawn broke through the window and I chose life. The sun catcher caught the afternoon light, threw little rainbows across the grass, across our hands as we worked, across the tomato plants we were placing in the ground. Dad, Hannah said, I've been thinking about going back to school in the fall, finishing my degree, maybe even staying in medicine. Dr. Winters thinks I'd make a good surgeon. You would, I said. You're strong, you're brave, you don't give up. I learned that from you. She smiled. The last 4 months, watching you rebuild, watching you choose truth every single day, even when it hurt, watching you lose 200 members and not compromise, watching you sit in that smaller church office and smile because you're free. She started crying. Happy tears. You showed me what integrity looks like, Dad, what real love looks like, not the fake version Mom sold me, not the performance Caleb put on, the real thing, messy, painful, true. I pulled her into a hug. Tyler joined us, the 3 of us kneeling in the dirt, holding each other. I'm proud of both of you, I said. You've been through hell, and you chose truth too. You chose healing over bitterness, growth over destruction. That takes courage. We learned from the best, Tyler said. We pulled apart, went back to planting. The dove sun catcher turned slowly in the breeze, catching light, creating beauty from broken glass, just like us. David and Hannah redefined what family means that spring. Not who you're bound to by birth or by vows, but who shows up when truth demands courage, who stays when the performance ends and the real you is all that's left. If you've built your own chosen family, if you've had to cut away diseased parts to let something healthy grow, tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear your story, and if this story moved you, if it made you think about mercy and truth, about grace and consequences, subscribe. I tell stories about the courage it takes to choose both, about the people who lose everything to gain their integrity, about the families that break apart so they can rebuild on truth. I'll see you in the next one. I walked into the church office that Monday morning, not the big senior pastor suite anymore, a smaller office, same building but 3rd floor, overlooking the prayer garden instead of the parking lot. Margaret had coffee waiting for me. Morning, Pastor. Morning, Margaret. Board meeting at 10. Budget review, the Franklin Satellite Campus deal fell through. They decided to go with another church, but Joel found a better property in Murfreesboro, half the price. Good. And Hannah called, said she's starting back at school in the fall, pediatrics track. I smiled. I know. She told me yesterday, while we were planting tomatoes. Margaret laughed. You? Gardening? I never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I. I sat at my desk, opened my burgundy sermon journal. The leather creaked. But I'm learning about pruning, about cutting away what's diseased so the healthy parts can thrive. Speaking of which, Margaret said, the counseling office couch needs replacing. That thing's 30 years old. Maybe it's time for something new. I looked out the window, at the prayer garden, at the oak tree where we'd held Tyler's high school graduation party, at the pathway where I'd walked with hundreds of people over 18 years. Yeah, I said. Maybe it is time for something new. Margaret smiled and left. I picked up my pen, started writing Sunday's sermon, the title, Rebuilding on Truth. And for the first time in 18 years, I knew exactly what to say. Not about cheap grace, not about mercy without accountability, not about enabling evil in the name of love, about the hard work of real forgiveness, about the courage of consequences, about the families that break so they can heal, about the churches that shrink so they can grow honestly, about the pastors who lose their reputation so they can gain their soul. I wrote until noon, until the words flowed like water, until the story became clear. The story of a man who built a church on grace and nearly destroyed his family in the process. The story of a daughter who wore a cross necklace until she learned that symbols mean nothing without truth. The story of a community that chose honesty over comfort. The story of a dove window that showed me light, even in my darkest moment. I closed the journal. The leather creaked. Outside, spring had arrived in Nashville. The trees were budding. The garden was blooming. Everything was growing, including me.